Hello and welcome back to EV Platform. Myself and Derek both got up very, very early this morning to catch some news on the new Subaru Solterra. So let's get stuck into the details straight away. So as I said, myself and Derek were up early this morning to catch Tomomoe Nakamura, the CEO of Subaru, making his presentation on the global premiere of the Subaru Solterra. We also then had the Daisuke Ono. I love the Japanese names. They're absolutely fantastic. He was the project manager for the Solterra, just to give us a little bit more details. Now, admittedly, we're a little bit thin. We haven't got detailed specifications yet, but we've got enough, I think, to make a short video and get a really good introduction to what the Subaru Solterra is actually like. But just to go back for a step before we get stuck into the juicy details, this was a partnership that kicked off in like 2019 as Toyota and Subaru teamed up to come up with an EV platform, share a little bit of knowledge. I can only have a guess at who the big brother in that relationship was, but anyway, they're after getting an electric SUV out on the market, so fair play to them. Derek, do you want to kick on there and tell us a little bit more about what we know so far?
You've kind of ruined my next part there, Blake, because some people will realize that it's kind of looks something similar to an electric SUV recently announced called the BZ4X from Toyota. But the fact that you've mentioned the co-development, yeah, they've come together, they've pooled their resources. Subaru talk about themselves being a small player in the marketplace, but Toyota, obviously, as you referenced, is the bigger brother. But it's great that they've come together. Let's share the resources. Let's spread the costs. It's a 5-passenger. Unfortunately, it is another SUV, but it is the market best-selling segment. It was focused on the Japanese market version, what we talked about today, and we're going to see the US version or the international version at the LA Auto Show later on. So it's their e-Subaru global platform. It's probably the same platform as the e-Toyota global platform. And it's part of, it's going to be built into the structure of the vehicle. So we've seen this with Tesla. A lot of people are using the battery packs as part of the structure. And the word Solterra is Latin for sol, which is sun, and terra, which is the earth. So it's very eco, green, all that kind of stuff. So Blake, what's going to get us up and running and what's going to get this thing moving along?
First, I want to just give out to you for talking about Latin. You're bringing me back to my school days and learning. Anyway, let's forget about that and move on. Talk about some more details. We've got all-wheel drive on this car. So what do we mean by that? Well, we've got two 80-kilowatt motors for a combined 160 kilowatts, and that's about 215 horsepower. We've got a motor on each axle, and Subaru are talking about the technology, whatever they're using, is that you can independently control each wheel on the back. So if one wheel is raised off the ground, you can send the power from that rear axle motor to the left wheel only and balance it out a little bit. So yeah, 215 horsepower, not too bad. We're looking at a 0 to 100 sprint in 7.7 seconds, I think it is, which is, it's brisk, but at the same time, it doesn't exactly blow your minds, like it's the same speed as an MG5 state, really. In terms of size, we're talking about a 4.7 meter long, so it's significant without being as big as those kind of 5 meter long SUVs that we are seeing, and 1.65 meters tall. In terms of the weighing scales, is tipping in at just over 2 tons, that's 2,020 kilos or thereabouts. And Subaru are only releasing the all-wheel drive motor from what we can tell, although in the specifications there is reference to a front-wheel drive version as well. So we'll know more in a week's time once that makes it to the LA show. But yeah, apart from those basic specs, and Derek, do you want to tell us a little bit about the battery range, charge, and all that kind of EV nerdy stuff that I love anyway?
Sit back and relax. 71.4 kilowatt hour battery, but that is total capacity. We don't know what of that is usable. It was a bit kind of loose on spec during, there was 2 videos that were released this morning, and that's 355 volts. WLTP, about 460 kilometers. And for those still using the imperial metric or the imperial system, that's 285 miles. We haven't got an EPA rating yet, but we reckon that'll be probably slightly lower. Charging at 150 kilowatts, which is good to see, and 6.6 kilowatts on AC, with an option for an 11 kilowatt, we assume, just because it seems to be the flavor of the month for the European market. You've a couple of different driving modes: eco, normal, and power. You get regen paddles on behind the steering wheel, and then, as you said, you've got the all-wheel drive. And it shifts the power between the front axle and the rear axle. And Subaru are known for that, for their rallying heritage. Blake, at the beginning we were chatting about how you'd be very mistaken, or you wouldn't be mistaken for thinking it's another SUV. Aesthetically, what's your opinion on it?
Yeah, you touched on it there, and I really want to resist the temptation to draw parallels with Toyota and Lexus here. So I'm trying my best to give respect to Subaru and their development and design teams and in their uniqueness and their originality. So we'll just move on from that. Although you must say aesthetically is almost identical to Toyotas and certainly a lot of cues, obviously through the Lexus brand. What's a little bit different? Well, you got that hexagonal grille that we see on Subarus on the front. The fenders that go around the wheel arches, that starts to actually wrap around slightly, comes onto the front bumper, which is a design touch now we haven't seen at all, or quite rarely anyway. You'd think actually you'd be afraid it would make it look a little bit cheap, but they seem to get away with it. Some small trim differences inside, smattering of Subaru badges here and there. That center console looks really, really good as well. You've got some storage underneath it, and it's got a 12.3-inch screen just sitting up there. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but then again, we're kind of expecting that in modern cars, especially at the price points that the Subaru is likely to come in at. It does have pretty good connectivity to your phone, though, so you can remotely open windows, preheat the cabin, things like that. Nice glass sunroof there as well. I love that feature in cars. It just lets a little bit more light in. It feels a little bit more airy, even if it actually isn't. 18-inch wheels are standard, but you can option 20 as well. And then it's got a nice little touch, which is automatic self-parking. I was using this only a couple of months ago on the Honda E, and yeah, it's a really, really interesting one. Honda E, a lot smaller car with a tiny turning circle, so a little bit easier to park than what the Subaru will be. So that actually might help a lot of people, especially in busy car parks and things like that. But Derek, I think let's kick on and then just talk a little bit about where's this going to go on sale, prices. Do we know anything? What's your take on that?
Another middle of next year, so 2022, depending on when you're watching this video. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you do so. And let us know in the comments what you think. Do you like the Subaru? Will it be on your shopping list? You might have to wait a small bit until we get the prices. We're looking at mid kind of $30,000, mid to late $30,000, which will be 30,000, mid to late 30,000 euros. It's there in that same ballpark as your ID4s, your Skoda Enyaq, etc., etc. And I suppose coming back into the studio, Blake, we've gone through this deck and we've gone through the presentations and the videos. What's your gut feeling on it to start with, and leaving aside the history of both companies involved in the co-development, just take it on its own as a standalone EV? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm finding that a little bit hard to do, but let's give it a shot anyway. Yeah, I think it looks sharp. It's a particular type of design. It's quite angular, a lot of creases. It's not, that curvaceous style that you might get in an ID4. It's quite different from that. You take, the headlights and the wheel arches and stuff. There's a lot of lines, a lot of angles in it. And to some people, that's going to be really appealing. They're going to like it. I certainly don't mind it. You know what? I do, actually. I like it. But I can see a lot of people looking at that going, ooh, not quite. But yeah, closed off front grille reminds you a little bit possibly of the Mustang Mach-E and, even the MGZ SEV and the Icona with that closed off kind of grille. Yeah, inside I'm expecting some nice quality materials. We're going to have to pay for it, but that's fine. The all-wheel drive aspect is going to be, I suspect, quite promising. It'll be interesting to see how that copes off-road. Not that cars like this are going to be taken off-road that much at all. And we haven't seen reference to towing yet either. And I think a lot of people typically buying, the likes of Subaru Forester or something like that are going to want to put a trailer or a horse box on the back as well. Yeah, that's my initial take on it. Derek, what about you?
Yeah, style-wise, very Toyota heavy, very much like the RAV4. And I didn't realize how big the RAV4, the combustion engine Toyota, had gotten. So very similar to that. Looks like its bigger brother. Futuristic, very sci-fi. You could see this car in 30 years' time on a Blade Runner video. The front, like you mentioned, very Mustang. That's the minute I saw it on this morning when it was revealed. I was like, wow, that looks very much like a Mustang. At the front, Jaguar I-Pace, but they're all starting to look very SUV-ish at the moment. So yeah, I suppose now over to you folks. Let us know in the comments what you think. It's a brief introduction to the Subaru Solterra. It's not a bad first attempt. We'll give them that, but they've had plenty of years to try and do it. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. Make sure you've already subscribed, as I mentioned. This has been EV Platform.
Thank you very much for watching.